Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive.
From AI-inspired insights from farmers.
If you're enjoying what we're doing here, we'd love to hear from you too.
Absolutely.
Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and definitely leave a comment telling us what you want to see more of on this deep dive.
We're always looking for new ideas, and we really value your feedback.
So what farm-related mysteries are you dying to uncover?
Right.
What questions are keeping you up at night? Let us know, and maybe we'll tackle them in a future deep dive. Today,
All right, so whether you're, someone who's just kind of getting started with farming or maybe thinking about, a new business in the ag world, this is for you.
yeah,
We are diving deep into how AI is, changing things up big time when it comes to predicting how much your crops are going to yield and, really making the most out of harvest time.
yeah,
It's a pretty fascinating stuff.
that's the future of food
It really is.
and how we grow it. Yeah,
Exactly. And to break it all down, we've got some really cool insights from articles by Keymaker, Emerging India Analytics and Talent, all about this exciting, world where AI and big data meet in agriculture.
Yeah.
Our goal today is pretty simple, really.
Yeah.
We want to give you a clear picture of how AI is actually being used on farms today, the real benefits it's bringing to the table,
Yeah.
and even some of the amazing equipment and technologies that are making it all happen.
yeah,
And don't worry, we'll keep the tech talk, on a level that makes sense.
absolutely.
No need to get lost in the weeds.
Yeah,
So let's jump right in.
let's get into it.
What if you could kind of get a sneak peek at your harvest, like way before you actually bring it in?
Right.
That's the power of AI-driven crop yield prediction.
Yeah.
Like having a crystal ball, but it's not magic.
No magic here, just a lot of data.
It's about analyzing tons of information, right?
Tons.
Everything from the weather in your area, the specifics of your soil, past growing seasons, and even your own farming methods.
That's right.
So how does a computer actually, make these predictions?
Well, through the use of machine learning algorithms,
Okay.
like regression
Yeah.
and neural networks.
Okay. So regression, that's kind of like the computer drawing a line, connecting the dots between different data points.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it, like how temperature affects plant growth.
Got it.
Yeah. Neural networks are a bit more complex.
Okay.
They're more like a team of detectives looking at all the clues
Uh-huh.
to solve a mystery. In our case, the mystery is your harvest,
Interesting.
figuring out the complex patterns in the data.
Now, if you can really get a handle on what your yield's going to be, that changes a lot.
Right? Absolutely. It changes the game completely.
Yeah.
For a farmer, this info is priceless.
I bet.
It helps you decide when to plant, how to use your resources like fertilizer and water,
Mm-hmm.
even when to start planning your harvest.
Yeah.
But it goes beyond just your farm.
Oh, really?
Yeah, policymakers can use these predictions to see the bigger picture of food security,
Wow.
like on a national or global scale.
That's huge.
Yeah, and the entire supply chain benefits too.
So from the folks who process your crops to the stores where people buy them.
Everyone's in the loop, operating more efficiently.
That's amazing. Okay. So, we've all heard about this idea of precision farming.
Right.
What does AI bring to that party?
Well, precision farming is all about treating different parts of your field
Uh-huh.
differently based on their unique needs.
So not just treating the whole field the same way.
Exactly. And AI helps us analyze each part of your land.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use the right amount of water fertilizer exactly where and when it's needed.
So no more, just kind of spraying everything with the same amount of stuff.
Less waste, more efficiency.
It's like giving each little corner of your farm its own personal spa treatment.
You could say that, yeah.
It's got to be good for the environment.
Absolutely. It minimizes your impact.
And the numbers tell the story, right?
They do. The use of AI in precision farming is expected to grow by a whopping 22% every year
Wow.
through 2025.
Okay, so we're seeing that AI can predict yields, and that's really important for making smart decisions
Right.
and doing this precision farming thing. But let's take a step back and really understand why these accurate forecasts are so crucial,
Okay.
especially when we think about, sustainable agriculture and feeding all these people on the planet.
Yeah, that's the big picture,
It is.
right? It's about farming in a way that's both productive and good with the environment.
Got it.
And this matters even more when you consider the challenges we're facing.
Like climate change and a growing population.
Exactly. More mouths to feed and a climate that's throwing us curveballs.
Yeah, almost 10 billion people by 2050. That's a lot of plates to fill.
It is a lot. And accurate forecasting gives farmers the tools they need to manage resources better.
So they can handle those unpredictable weather events a little better
Yeah, adapt and overcome.
and make sure everyone's got food on the table.
It helps create a more stable food supply, and that's vital for everyone.
And of course, we can't forget about the environment.
Right, it minimizes our impact on the planet.
Can you give us some examples of how these predictions lead to more sustainable practices?
Sure, let's take irrigation.
Okay.
If you know how much rain is coming and how much moisture your soil already has.
You can be really smart about watering your crop.
Exactly. No more overwatering.
Just the right amount where it's needed.
Precision irrigation at its best.
And what about fertilizer?
Same idea. Knowing your crop's nutrient needs means you apply just the right amount.
No excess running off into the ecosystem. That's great. And what about pests?
Well, if you know how your crops are doing, you can target pest control more effectively.
I see. So less reliance on those broad spectrum pesticides?
That's the goal.
So it's all about being proactive, right?
Being proactive and efficient, that's the key.
Not waiting for problems to pop up,
Right.
because then you're often playing catch up and you're wasting resources.
That time and money.
Yeah, exactly. And ultimately, this helps us strike that balance
Yeah.
between producing enough food and taking care of the planet.
Striking that balance, that's the sweet spot.
Exactly. So when AI is making these predictions, what kind of info is it looking at?
Right. What's the data that's driving these models?
What are the key ingredients for a healthy and bountiful crop?
Well, it starts with the soil,
Makes sense.
its quality, the moisture levels, the nutrients, all of that matters.
And then, of course, there's the weather.
Right. The ever-changing weather.
It's a big one.
It is things like temperature, rainfall, sunlight, humidity,
They all play a role.
a huge role in how well your crops grow.
Okay, so soil quality, that seems like a pretty complex thing to assess.
It is, but AI utilizes the data from soil testing.
Okay, so farmers actually take samples and send them off to a lab.
Yeah, they analyze the soil's physical structure, its chemical makeup, even its biological activity.
Oh, that's pretty in-depth.
It is. And that data helps farmers decide what the soil needs.
Like amendments or fertilizers.
Exactly. Give the soil what it's missing.
And what about moisture levels?
That's where sensors come in.
Okay.
Placed right in the field,
Mm-hmm.
giving you real-time data on the moisture content at different depths.
So you can see exactly how much water is down there.
Yeah, and combine that with weather forecasts, and you can make smart irrigation decisions.
Wow, so no more guessing games.
No more guessing.
Just using the right amount of water right where it's needed.
That's the idea.
You mentioned nutrients earlier. Can you give us a quick breakdown of the most important ones?
Sure, you got nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium,
Okay, the big three.
the essential trio.
All right, so nitrogen, what does that do?
Nitrogen's all about leafy growth.
Okay.
If you see yellowing leaves or stunted growth.
That could be a nitrogen deficiency.
It could be, yeah.
What about phosphorus?
Phosphorus is essential for root development.
Makes sense.
So if you notice purplish discoloration of the leaves or a weak root system,
Could be a phosphorus issue.
right.
And lastly, potassium?
Potassium helps with strong stems and overall plant vigor.
Okay.
Yellowing or scorching along the edges of the leaves.
That could be a potassium deficiency.
Exactly.
And then there's the weather, which is always the wild card, right?
The wild card, it can make or break a season.
It can, yeah. Temperature, rainfall, sunlight, humidity.
They all impact how your crops grow and ultimately your yield.
So having good weather data is crucial,
It is. That's why weather stations are so important.
both on your farm and in the region.
Yep. And those sophisticated meteorological models.
So you're not just looking at today's weather, you're trying to anticipate what's coming.
You need to have a good idea of what's on the horizon.
And what about past weather data? Is that useful?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Historical weather patterns can help us create more accurate prediction models.
Really?
Yeah, we can see how those patterns have affected yields in the past.
And use that info to make better decisions in the future.
Exactly like choosing the best time to plant.
So we've got all this data about the soil, the weather, historical records.
Mountains of data.
It is, how does AI actually take all that raw information and turn it into a prediction about how much we're going to harvest?
Well, this is where big data and AI really shine.
Okay.
We're talking about using massive data sets.
I'm talking decades of weather records, soil surveys, satellite imagery,
It's a lot to process.
and real-time data from sensors in the fields.
Right.
AI can handle all that information that a human analyst would struggle with.
It can sift through it all, find the hidden patterns, and make predictions.
That's incredible. So those machine learning algorithms are really doing the heavy lifting.
They are predictive modeling using algorithms like regression.
Mm.
And neural networks has shown remarkable accuracy in forecasting yields.
based on all that data we were just talking about.
Exactly, the weather, soil, moisture, vegetation indices.
So it's like a whole team of invisible analysts working behind the scenes.
You could say that, yeah.
Now, I know we mentioned some real-world examples earlier.
Yeah.
Can you remind us of a few of those where these algorithms are actually being used?
Sure. For instance, random forest algorithms are being used to predict corn yields in the U.S. Corn Belt.
Okay.
And support vector machines are being applied to estimate wheat yield in Australia.
Wow, all over the world.
Yeah, and then you have linear regression techniques being used to forecast citrus and strawberry yields in Florida.
So different algorithms for different crops in different regions.
Exactly. And the choice of algorithm often depends on the specific crop, the environment, and the data that's available.
And as we get more and more data from things like remote sensing and those Internet of Things devices.
The predictions are only going to get more accurate.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so let's talk more about remote sensing.
Okay.
For someone who's new to farming, what kind of equipment are we talking about?
We're talking satellites, aerial photography,
Okay.
and geospatial data.
So like drones taking pictures.
Exactly.
Wow. And all this helps us monitor crops and predict yields.
Especially over large areas.
Right. So you don't have to have people out in every single field.
Yeah, we can see things from above.
So a satellite way up in space can tell me how my wheat field is doing.
Well, it's not quite that simple,
Okay.
but essentially, yes.
Wow.
These technologies capture different kinds of radiation reflected by the Earth, including vegetation, and we process that data to create what are called vegetation indices.
So it's like a health score for your plants?
You could say that, yeah.
Interesting.
With the NDVI,
Okay.
the VCI, and the WDRVI.
And these indices tell us things like,
The amount of green leaf biomass,
okay,
soil moisture levels, nutrient availability.
so they're giving us clues about how the plants are doing.
Yeah, and how the environment is impacting their growth.
And how do we take that data from above and turn it into a yield prediction?
Well, we combine it with information from ground sensors,
Right.
like those measuring soil moisture and temperature, and we add in detailed weather information.
So it's like having a multi-layered view of the farm.
Exactly, from the sky to the ground.
That's really cool.
And then AI comes in to analyze all that data,
Okay.
find the patterns, and create those precise yield prediction models.
So AI is like the brains of the operation.
You could say that it's putting all the pieces together.
Can you give us a few more specific examples of how these technologies are used in the real world?
Sure. Satellite imagery can show us the overall health of crops,
Okay.
help us spot nutrient deficiencies or drought stress.
That's pretty amazing.
And aerial photography from drones can give us even more detail.
Wow.
We can see things like pest outbreaks or crop damage after a storm.
I see.
We can even estimate how much plant material is in a field.
So all these technologies working together give us a really complete picture.
A holistic view of the agricultural landscape.
Now we've talked about what AI does in crop prediction and why it's so important.
Right.
But let's dig into the how a little bit more.
Okay, let's get technical.
What are some of the specific AI techniques being used?
Well, we have regression techniques,
Okay.
like linear regression and lasso regression.
And what do those do?
They help us model the relationships between crop yield and various inputs.
So like how does temperature or soil nutrients affect how much we harvest?
Exactly, quantifying those cause and effect relationships.
Yeah, cool.
And then there are decision trees
Okay.
and random forests.
What are those all about?
These are what we call ensemble methods.
Ensemble methods.
Yeah, they combine the outputs of multiple decision trees
Okay.
to deal with more complex relationships in the data.
So they can handle the messy real world?
They're good at finding the key factors that really drive yield.
And what about those support vector machines?
Oh, yes, SVMs.
I remember you mentioning those earlier.
Right, they're great when you have a ton of variables.
Which we often do in agriculture.
We do, and they can find those subtle boundaries in the data to make accurate predictions.
And then there's deep learning, which seems to be all the rage these days.
Deep learning is a game changer.
Yeah.
Especially convolutional neural networks, or CNNs.
CNNs.
Yeah, they're good at analyzing spatial data, like satellite imagery.
Okay.
They can spot patterns related to crop health or even disease. And then you have recurrent neural networks, RNNs.
Okay.
They're good for analyzing time series data.
So like weather patterns over time.
Exactly.
Or how a crop grows over the season.
Right.
So they can see those trends and make predictions based on sequences of events.
Exactly.
And I remember seeing something about computer vision, too.
Yes. Computer vision is all about using AI to analyze images.
Okay.
whether those images come from satellites, drones, or even cameras on the ground.
And what kind of things can AI see in these images?
Well, it could detect things like leaf area index.
So how much of the ground is covered by leaves?
Right.
Duh.
And chlorophyll content, which tells us how well the plant is photosynthesizing.
So AI is basically acting like a super botanist,
You could say that, yeah.
examining the plants in ways that we never could before.
And using all that information to estimate yields.
So it seems like all these AI tools are giving farmers a ton of information
A wealth of knowledge.
to help them make better decisions.
Data-driven decisions.
Exactly.
So we can optimize resource, mitigate risks, and ultimately have more successful harvests.
Now, having all these fancy AI models is one thing.
Right.
But how do farmers actually use them in their day-to-day operations?
That's the key. It has to be practical.
Yeah.
So we integrate these models into existing decision support tools
Okay.
that farmers are already familiar with.
So it's not like starting from scratch.
No, it's about adding AI to the toolbox.
So you're taking all that complex AI output and presenting it in a way that makes sense to a farmer.
Exactly. Clear, concise, actionable insights.
So what does that look like in practice?
Well, we have user-friendly interfaces and dashboards
Okay.
that show the predicted yields,
Right.
but also things like risk assessments.
So, like, are there areas of the field that are more prone to pests?
Exactly. Or disease.
That's really useful.
And we can even do scenario analysis.
Okay.
So a farmer can see how different decisions might impact their yield.
So they can kind of run simulations.
Yeah, try different planting dates or irrigation schedules.
That's amazing. So they can make more informed decisions before they even start planting.
That's the power of AI.
And what about mobile apps and web platforms?
They're becoming more and more common.
Yeah.
They can deliver real-time recommendations and alerts.
So, like, if the AI sees that a certain field needs water,
Right.
it can send a notification to the farmer's phone.
Exactly.
That's incredible. But, not everyone's a tech expert.
Sure.
Farmers need to know how to use these tools.
That's where education comes in.
So training programs, workshops, to help farmers understand and trust these AI-based systems.
Build their confidence and empower them to use AI effectively.
So it's not just about the technology itself,
No, it's about empowering people.
giving them the knowledge and skills to make the most of it.
Exactly.
Now, we've talked a lot about yield prediction,
Right?
but our sources, Emerging India Analytics and Talon, really emphasized the bigger impact of big data on agriculture as a whole.
Big data is transforming the entire industry.
So beyond just predicting how much we're going to harvest,
Right?
how else is big data being used?
Well, think about all the data being generated on a farm, from sensors on equipment to satellite imagery to weather forecasts.
It's a data explosion.
It is. And big data analytics is about using all that info
Okay.
to optimize all kinds of farming practices.
Can you give us some concrete examples?
Sure, we've already talked about optimizing irrigation, but we can also use big data to monitor soil health,
Okay.
predict pest outbreaks,
Right.
optimize equipment usage.
It's like having a whole team of invisible assistants helping you run the farm.
You could say that, yeah.
And what are the benefits of all this?
Well, increased efficiency, for one,
Okay.
less waste of resources like water and fertilizer,
Got it.
early detection of risks.
So you can nip problems in the bud.
Exactly.
And of course, improve sustainability.
Right, using our resources more wisely.
Our sources mentioned some real-world success stories.
They did.
Can you share a couple of those?
Sure. There was a wheat farm in Kansas that boosted yields
Okay.
by using data to optimize irrigation and fertilizer application,
Wow.
and a vineyard in California that used data to monitor grape maturity.
So they could pick the grapes at the perfect time.
Yeah.
Amazing. And they also use data to predict disease outbreaks?
Right, which reduced their pesticide use.
That's a big win for the environment.
It is.
And there was a coffee plantation in Brazil that used satellite imagery and sensors.
To optimize harvest times?
That's impressive. So it seems like big data is already making a real difference.
It is, but there are challenges too.
Oh, yeah. What are some of the hurdles?
Well, one is the lack of standardized data collection.
So it's hard to compare apples to apples?
Yeah, everyone's collecting data differently.
That makes sense.
And then there's data privacy.
Right. Farmers need to know their data is safe.
Absolutely.
And integrating all these different technologies can be tricky.
It can be, yeah.
And for smaller farms, the cost can be a barrier.
That's true.
And of course, farmers need to be trained to use these systems.
Yeah, data literacy is crucial.
So it seems like we need more education, more support, and maybe some more affordable solutions.
to make sure everyone can benefit from these technologies.
Absolutely, but the future is exciting.
It is.
Imagine drones monitoring every single plant.
Wow.
AI giving ultra-precise recommendations.
Amazing.
Tractors with Internet of Things devices.
Yeah.
Predictive analytics for weather and markets.
It's mind-boggling.
It really is, and all these technologies converging.
Blockchain machine learning is a whole new world.
Our Talent Source talked about the importance of those Internet of Things devices.
Yeah, IoT is essential for data collection.
So sensors on tractors in the soil,
Everywhere.
even on the plants themselves.
Right, gathering data 24/7.
And then all that data goes to the cloud,
Right.
where it's combined with weather data, market data.
Yeah,
So we can see the big picture,
find the patterns.
identify inefficiencies.
Predict the future.
No wonder the agricultural analytics market is booming.
It's exploding with potential.
And cloud computing is making all of this accessible to everyone.
That's right. It's democratizing access to powerful tools.
So even small farmers can benefit.
Exactly.
No more needing those expensive on-site servers.
The cloud has leveled the playing field.
So we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
What are the key takeaways for our listeners?
The main message is that AI and big data are here to stay.
They're transforming agriculture,
They're giving us more accurate predictions
helping us farm more efficiently and sustainably.
and making sure we can feed the world.
So if you're new to farming or thinking about starting an ag business,
This is the future.
it's time to embrace these technologies.
Learn about them, use them.
Build a more resilient and profitable operation.
The future is in your hands.
Here's a final thought for you.
Okay.
Given how fast AI is advancing in agriculture, what new business models or services might pop up
Interesting question.
to help farmers use these technologies effectively?
It's a wide open field ripe for innovation.
It really is. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the world of AI and crop yield prediction.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little inspiring.
Absolutely.
Until next time, happy farming.
Yeah, happy farming. Hitting that like button and smash that subscribe.